Hey everyone, so I'm going to do my reflection today on the ocean. And the ocean is not something I grew up with. I grew up in a landlocked country in Zimbabwe, so I was not surrounded by water. I'm not sure if that changes how people live or who they are. There are some places where islands, people are surrounded by water. They face floodings, they face extreme weather, they face different situations compared to us who grew up surrounded by the land and with the land foundation strong under our feet. But when we look at the ocean, we see the grandeur of God. We see the vastness of the ocean. And the ocean has no map. So if you go out onto the ocean, you have to plot your way by the stars, or you have to plot your way by landmarks if you're close enough to the land. If you don't know how to read the skies, you won't get to your destination. And for me, I think that that's also how God guides us, through the constellation of the stars. It's funny, yesterday when I went out and I took my photos of the blue moon, it's the second full month the second full moon in a month. That's why we call it a blue moon, because it doesn't happen all the time. I was thinking how similar it was to other blue moon pictures I've taken, where the clouds were slightly covering the moon and I had to wait for that moon to rise before I could get some clear pictures. And that's how it is with our spiritual lives too. We find that there are certain things that happen over and over, and they serve as guideposts for us when we look at the constellation of the moon and the stars in relation to the water. They are guideposts for us. Because when we see how God acts and how God moves, most of the time it's unexpected, it's unpredictable, it comes out of nowhere, and it's not things that we are expecting. And the ocean is like that. The ocean can be very unpredictable, like the weather today. Before, we used to have seasons where we knew with certainty that if you plant at this time, you're going to get your crops at this time. But the weather has changed so much in the world with the shifting of the tectonic plates under us that everything is becoming unpredictable. And that's how the ocean is. I love the ocean. When I went to England and I stood by the ocean, I loved it. I love the different sounds of the ocean when you hear the ocean rushing through the wind to the shores. The waves can be very different. They can be gentle or they can be very tumultuous. And the water, the power of the water in the ocean is also something that struck me. Because we came from the ocean through evolution. We were created and we came from the ocean. And we return into the ocean when we die and our bodies decompose. That goes back through the earth into the ocean. So the ocean is very much a part of our lives. It's a part of who we are. And that water even goes into the rocks. So I know that it seems impossible, like when we read the story of Moses in the Bible where Jesus tells him to speak to the rock or to strike the rock. And we say, how is this possible that water can come out of a rock? But it's actually not miraculous like people think. It's been proven through science that water does get retained in certain types of rocks. And even if you look at the rocks that are near the ocean, you find that the rocks by the ocean, when the water hits them, they take on a very soft kind of gentle appearance. But once that water dries, they look very different. They look very like a very hard black or a different shade of red depending on where they are. So for me, the ocean is part of the grandeur of God. The ocean is where most of our water is found, and even the nutrients like salt can come from the ocean. People will, in times where there's lack of salt, they'll get that salt from the ocean and use it for food. So it provides for us as well. And I'm just going to try to find the type of stone. I read it in a book about the type of stone that retains that water. Let me see if I can find it. So yeah, it's not miraculous. I mean, it might be miraculous that at that point in time and in that situation, the people of Israel were given that water at a time right when they needed it. But the stone itself containing water is not as miraculous as people might think. And I guess either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle, depending on the way that you look at it. But it's just to say that if you combine the science and the spiritual, it comes together in a way that it will make sense to you. Anyway, it's a certain type of stone that holds the water. It's not every stone. And even if you look at our lives, we are called living stones of Christ because we hold within us that spiritual element of life. We hold within us that water of life. And even our blood contains water. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I'll find the name of that stone and I'll post it when I post what this talk is about. I'll post it on the so that people can look it up if they want to find out more. But when we find that, like when a drop of water falls into the ocean, the whole level of the sea is raised. And without the ocean, our life will die on this planet. We won't have life. So I love that imagery of the stars ascending and also descending into our earth, that we are made up of stardust. And no two waves are ever the same, just like no two people are ever the same. And water is faceless. So we talk about the face of a rock, we talk about the face of a tree, but water is faceless. It takes the form of whatever you put it into. Without that element to hold it, it has no shape. So that can either be seen as incredibly beautiful or it can be seen as incredibly terrifying, depending on how you look at it. And I know for us, we say that everything is miracle. But if you read some of those stories about people look at it and they say, this is impossible. But everything is possible. In God's world, everything is possible. And even in our limitations, God works through our limitations and God brings about the impossible. So that's what I wanted to share of the ocean. I like the ocean. I don't like being out on the ocean, but I like watching the ocean. I like being near the ocean. I like to listen to the waves of the ocean. The ocean is something that is very, very special to me because I didn't grow up with it. And it's something that just struck me when I was thinking about living in a landlocked country like Zimbabwe compared to living on an island. And in some places like in Ireland, the nation, they have a lot of the Arabic influences. So their music, their culture, it's very much tied into that. They have that influence coming through in their culture. That's what I noticed about it. Oh, it's limestone, the softness of limestone. When you see limestone, limestone is something that when it's near the ocean, it will take on a different color. And when it dries, it becomes very hardened. But when that water touches it, it can become very soft, the limestone. So that's what I wanted to share for the blessing of the ocean in our lives. And some rivers are vast. I remember when I came to Canada and I went out to look at the lakes, I thought they were oceans because I didn't know that much about Canada. I didn't read up about it when I was in England. I was more focused on England and learning about England and exploring the land. So when I came here and I immigrated here, I was like, wow, this must be an ocean, but it wasn't an ocean. It was the lakes, the Great Lakes. So yeah, it's interesting because for me, I enjoyed living in a landlocked country, but I also enjoyed England. I liked going out to the cliffs, being on the shorelines, seeing even the starfish, things that I never grew up with, I was fascinated with. And being near the ocean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going for walks along the ocean, or even taking the train and going out to like a seaside resort and spending the day there. I did that with friends, with colleagues that I worked with in England. And yeah, the ocean is special. The ocean is something that it's amazing to see the power of the ocean and to be able to navigate. The fishermen are very skilled. I mean, now we have technology, but the fishermen who grow up reading the skies, who grow up reading the stars, they're very, very skilled. And my grandfather was like that. When the weather used to change and the skies took on like a salmon pink, he used to say this weekend is going to be good for fishing. Or when my grandmother used to see the changing of the moon, she used to say that you must be careful because then the full moon does affect some people with their mental health. And all of these things have been proven in science. They're things that are handed down through families, but they've been proven in science. So for me, the ocean is amazing. The ocean it's something that I find miraculous. And just even reading about the stone, how stones can hold water, and how God used that even from ancient times to present to nurture us and to nurture his people. And we become the living rocks. We become the rocks that are building up God's kingdom with that same water that started in the ocean. So next time you go to an ocean, think of me, because I'm nowhere near the ocean that I love. But I still go out sometimes to the water. I used to go take they have a tram here where you can go and sit on the waterfront. So like now when I'm unemployed, that's what I do sometimes. I take a book or I take a flask of coffee and I just go and I sit there and I enjoy the water. But when you're on no money, then you can't do that either. So you can just sit in your house and be grateful that you have a house to live in until you get work. So that's it for today. I'm going to turn this camera off now. And I did read the readings of the scriptures. I did read them. But today I wanted to focus on the ocean.